Underlying love, beneath the surface it lies, in the whispers of secrets and unspoken ties, caught between the heart's gentle tug and the dance of romance, in the arms of love.
You are listening to Bradley Barkhurst's Underlying Love, a Worthington, Ohio mystery. Chapter 5, Part 2, Fog of Confusion.
Elizabeth, what is the meaning of this?
George demanded, glaring at Samuel.
I thought I made my feelings about this rascal clear long ago.
Good to see you too, George. It's been a long time since high school,
commented Samuel. George bristled, but Elizabeth stepped between them.
George, please, Samuel is just accompanying me as a friend. Can we not do this now?
Absolutely not.
George fumed.
I arrived to comfort my bride-to-be and find she's fraternizing with riffraff from her past? I won't stand for it.
The two men looked about, ready to come to blows. Flustered, Betty tried ameliorating the situation, but George refused to be placated.
Mark my words, Elizabeth. Consorting with this vagabond will only lead to your ruin.
George spat.
And you, Samuel, go back out west to your dust bowl,
yelled George as he stormed off. Elizabeth stood trembling, Samuel gripping her hand supportively. Betty offered an apologetic look.
Dear me, let's get you home. That George is nothing but trouble.
After the tense encounter with George, Samuel tried lightening the mood by inviting Elizabeth and Betty for a drink at the New England Inn. But Elizabeth demurred, the evening's drama having sapped her energy.
I should be getting home. It's been quite a day,
she said wearily.
Let me walk you ladies at least,
Samuel offered. Elizabeth nodded gratefully, and the three ambled slowly down New England Avenue. At Elizabeth's door, Samuel took her hands gently.
I know there's much we need to discuss. Can we meet tomorrow evening? I can stop by again.
Elizabeth managed a small smile.
Of course,
Samuel smiled back, the familiar warmth reaching his eyes.
It will be wonderful to truly talk again. Get some rest, Elizabeth.
The two embraced as Betty looked on with a smile.
Good night, ladies,
waved Samuel just before he walked down the driveway. After he departed, Betty hooked her arm through Elizabeth's.
Come have some cocoa, dear. Soothe your nerves after all this excitement.
Elizabeth readily agreed, craving her wise neighbor's soothing presence. The two women soon sat cradling mugs in Betty's cozy kitchen, contemplating the day's dramatic events. Stirring her cocoa, Elizabeth suddenly remembered another important detail from the night of the murder.
Betty, here's something else. Right after I heard the awful scream, I saw someone running up the street. A shadowy figure all in black. There was an object in his hand.
Betty's eyes widened.
Is that so? Well, that's highly significant. Do you think it was Hobo Jeff?
Elizabeth shook her head.
No, I had just seen Hobo Jeff at Worthington Station. He wasn't wearing a dark trench coat like this guy. Now that I think about it, it was definitely someone fleeing the scene.
You must tell Officer Jameson immediately,
Betty advised.
Not just about Hobo Jeff's whereabouts, but this mysterious stranger you witnessed. It could break the case wide open.
You're right,
Elizabeth agreed, feeling energized by this new lead.
First thing tomorrow, I'll go straight to Jameson and tell him everything. If I can cast doubt on Jeff's guilt, maybe they'll look closer at other suspects.
The two women stayed up late into the night, piecing together clues and trying to make sense of the baffling crime that had shaken their quiet village. As their empty mugs grew cold, Betty's eyes took on a gleam of determination.
If you want to get to the bottom of this, I'd be happy to help investigate.
She rushed to the closet and emerged with a sturdy metal flashlight.
We can be like detectives, Holmes and Watson.
Betty declared, switching on the light and holding it under her chin like a villain in a movie drama. Elizabeth couldn't help but giggle at her eccentric neighbor's antics.
All right, Detective Betty, you're on the case.
She said lightheartedly. Bidding her partner good night, Elizabeth walked back home, feeling buoyed. But a chill swept over her as she saw the Collinses' dark, shuttered house. The killer was still out there somewhere. She shivered and hurried inside, reassured that with Samuel's help too, their little makeshift detective squad would uncover the truth and restore order in Worthington once more. The next morning, Elizabeth hurried to the police station, determined to share her eyewitness account. She was shown to Officer Jameson's desk right away. Elizabeth described seeing a mysterious figure fleeing down the street just after the scream pierced the night. Jameson listened intently, scribbling notes.
That's quite curious, ma'am, but we remain certain we've got the culprit.
Jameson said. He explained a bloody knife had been found near Hobo Jeff's shack and identified by Mrs. Collins as theirs.
I know what I saw,
Elizabeth insisted.
and I know Jeff was at the station when it happened, too drunk to make it to the Collins house. Someone else killed Mr. Collins and planted that knife to frame Jeff.
But Jameson simply shook his head.
Open and shut case in my book. We'll pass your statement to the chief, but I don't expect it'll change much.
Frustrated, Elizabeth left the station. If the police wouldn't listen, she was more determined than ever to prove Jeff's innocence and bring the real killer to justice. As Elizabeth turned to leave, Officer Jameson called her back.
Now just a moment, ma'am. The investigation is actually being led by a detective from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office Homicide Bureau.
This piqued Elizabeth's interest.
Who is the detective? Could I speak with him?
Jameson shook his head apologetically.
You'll have to take that up with the chief. But in the meantime, Hobo Jeff is in our temporary holding cell if you want to talk to him.
Eagerly, Elizabeth asked if she could see Jeff right away. Jameson acquiesced and led her back to the cramped cell, where a disheveled Jeff sat scowling on the cot.
You've got a visitor, Jeff. It's Miss Elizabeth Russo.
Jameson announced, unlocking the door to the holding area. He lingered by the bars as Elizabeth entered. Jeff's eyes widened in surprise when he recognized her.
Miss Russo, you gotta believe me, I didn't kill nobody.
Jeff burst out. Elizabeth moved closer.
Just tell me what happened that night.
She said gently.
It was raining something fierce that night.
Jeff explained with a faraway look.
I was trying to get a fire going and cook up some beans, but the wood was too wet. Ended up drinking most of my whiskey just to get warm.
He shook his head sadly.
Must have passed out for a spell. When I woke, it was late. Next morning, the police showed up saying they found a knife outside my place, and then I'm arrested for murder.
Jeff wrung his hands in distress.
But I never left my shack all night, I swear it. And I ain't never seen that knife either. Someone's trying to pin this thing on me real hard.
Elizabeth patted his shoulder.
I believe you, Jeff. We're going to figure out what really happened. Just hang in there.
Leaving the cell, Elizabeth felt even more motivated to uncover the truth. Jeff was a harmless local vagrant, not a violent killer. And she was going to prove it. After a few more minutes, Officer Jameson said,
Time's up, Miss Russo. I'll have to ask you to leave now.
As Jameson escorted her out, Elizabeth said firmly,
That knife was planted to frame Jeff, I'm sure of it.
Jameson shook his head.
Couldn't be, ma'am. There was only one set of footprints in the mud outside his shack where we found the knife. Those footprints belonged to Jeff.
Elizabeth's mind spun as she walked slowly back to school in the unusually warm fall weather. One set of footprints that seemed to implicate Jeff beyond a doubt. And yet her gut still told her the vagrant was innocent. There had to be an explanation. Elizabeth was more determined than ever to get to the bottom of this mystery. If only she could fit all the puzzle pieces together, maybe then she'd have answers. The next morning, arriving at school, Elizabeth found her students uncharacteristically subdued. Little Amy's chair still sat empty. The Collins tragedy was still weighing heavily on the class. Hoping to lift their spirits, Elizabeth invited Miss Greener's class to join her class for an ice cream outing at lunchtime. The children's faces immediately brightened at the prospect. As the sun shined, they walked across Granville Road and then High Street eagerly to Bernie's drugstore for some Telling's ice cream. As they walked into the store, the scrumptious smells wafted through the door, making their mouths water. Mike, the man behind the counter, greeted them cheerily, handing out heaping scoops of creamy confections: chocolate, strawberry, pistachio. The kids' joyous chatter rose above the din of the bustling shop. With treats in hand, they headed to the village green to enjoy their cold desserts under the warm autumn sun. As they ate, Danny, the local high schooler who took the photo of the car accident, came by and offered to snap a photo of the classes. The children beamed with sticky-faced delight. For a moment, the shadow over Worthington lifted. Elizabeth was glad to bring some lightness back to her students' young lives. Their innocence deserved protection. She savored a lick of sweet vanilla ice cream, bracing herself for the challenges yet to come in, uncovering the truth. The children laughed and chatted loudly as they devoured their ice cream cones, drips running down their small hands.
Oh my, you're all getting so sticky!
Elizabeth exclaimed with amusement.
Miss Greener, could you please pass me a tissue from that citru box?
Of course.
Miss Greener replied, grabbing the floral-printed box of tissues and handing several to Elizabeth. Elizabeth gently wiped the dripping ice cream off each child's hands and face, the cherry red stain spreading across the tissues. The kids squirmed, but patiently allowed her to clean them up.
They're now all fresh and tidy again,
Elizabeth declared, stuffing the soiled tissues into her pocketbook. The students sprang up to resume playing, invigorated by the treat. Elizabeth watched them fondly, spirits lifted by their resilient joy. With some ice cream and laughter, they had found a pocket of normalcy again amidst the town's darkness and troubles. After their sweet respite on the green, the Worthington Presbyterian church bells began tolling 1 o'clock.
All right, children, time to head back to school,
Elizabeth announced, gathering their trash. The resonant gongs echoed down the hillside as they started their walk back. The students skipped along happily, all sticky traces from their treat gone. Their youthful chatter mingled with the bells' rhythmic peals. As they crossed Granville Road, the impressive edifice of the school came into view. The bells fell silent as the last child filed back into the building. Elizabeth watched them fondly entering back into the classroom, their innocent laughter still ringing in her ears. For now, the darkness that had gripped Worthington retreated to the edges of her mind. but she knew the mysteries remained to be unraveled before peace could fully return. After school, Elizabeth walked home pensively, thinking about everything that had happened in the past few days. She ate dinner and then sat on the couch to look at the sale numbers from the store. She was hoping to meet Samuel later that night, but they hadn't made any concrete plans. Her head was drifting in and out of sleep from being up late the night before. Elizabeth woke up to a knock on the door. As she got up, she looked at the clock. It was already 8:15 p.m. She walked to the front door and opened it. Standing in front of her was Samuel holding a bouquet of beautiful flowers.
These are for you.
He said with a smile.
May I come in?
Of course, please have a seat.
Elizabeth replied graciously, ushering him inside. She put the flowers in water and joined him at the kitchen table.
I spoke with the police and that vagrant Jeff today.
She began.
Jeff insists he's innocent, and I'm certain he's telling the truth.
She described to Samuel, seeing the mysterious fleeing figure after the scream.
It was too late for Jeff to have gotten there. I know it. Someone else killed Mr. Collins and framed Jeff. I just have to prove it.
Samuel nodded thoughtfully.
It does seem suspicious. What can I do to help get to the bottom of this?
Just as Elizabeth and Samuel were discussing leads, an urgent knock came at the door. Elizabeth opened it to find Betty, flashlight in hand.
I'm ready to investigate,
She declared. An idea struck Elizabeth.
Let's go examine the area around Worthington Station where Hobo Jeff was that night.
Samuel offered to drive them in his uncle's car that was parked out front. Elizabeth grabbed a pen and notebook and her father's old camera with a flashbulb. Under cover of foggy darkness, they pulled up near the cordoned-off crime scene. When they got out of the car, the sound of a train whistle echoed far away. Betty's flashlight cut a feeble beam through the gloom as they approached Jeff's ramshackle shelter that he likely assembled from discarded wood from Potter lumber across the tracks. Samuel shivered next to Elizabeth.
It sure is creepy out here at night.
Elizabeth felt emboldened by his solid presence.
Jeff said he saw a truck speeding off last night. Maybe we can find tire prints.
Betty swung her flashlight beam over the dark, foggy ground surrounding the shack. As it swept across the muddy earth, the light glinted off some deep ruts.
Look there!
Elizabeth exclaimed, rushing over. Crouching down, she saw clearly that they were tire tracks indented into the mud a few feet from the shack.
Just as Jeff described, a vehicle was here that night,
She said excitedly. Samuel nodded, peering at the tracks closely. Elizabeth quickly dug her father's camera out of her bag. She carefully positioned it above the tire tracks and popped the flashbulb, capturing the evidence on film.
This is proof that Hobo Jeff was telling the truth about seeing a truck speeding off,
Elizabeth said.
Let's follow the mud tracks to see where it leads,
Replied Betty. The three followed the tire racks, which led onto the road towards Granville Ard. Their hearts raced as fast as the vehicle that had been here. The photo felt like the first step in finding a smoking gun finally supporting Jeff's innocence. Justice and truth were within their grasp. Just as they turned to leave, a loud voice shouted,
Hey, you!
They whirled around to see Milkman Bailey approaching, looking stern out of uniform.
That's an active crime scene. Best you folks stay away.
He scolded. They murmured apologies and hurried back towards the car. Samuel whispered,
Guess we'd better skedaddle before Sherlock Bones here cracks the case.
Despite everything, Elizabeth had to stifle a grin. Safely in the car, their pulses raced as they sped away into the night. Samuel dropped Betty off with thanks for her help. Alone with Samuel in the moonlight, Elizabeth felt suddenly self-conscious. At her door, he gazed at her intently.
Aren't you going to invite me in?
She hesitated, flustered.
It's rather late, and I am still an engaged woman after all.
Samuel looked disappointed, but simply squeezed her hand.
You're right, forgive me. Good night, Elizabeth.
Just then, Samuel embraced Elizabeth and bent his head down to kiss her. Elizabeth moved her head out of the way to avoid the kiss, but then moved back in front of Samuel. Their lips touched, and they shared a deep, passionate moment. She then pushed him away.
Sam, I can't. I can't do this. That's a bad idea. Good night.
Samuel stood quietly and began to walk to the car. Elizabeth closed the front door and leaned against it, her mind spinning. The brief kiss from Samuel had awakened a torrent of emotions within her. Confusion, exhilaration, longing, and also fear. Fear of what these feelings meant, now that she had pledged herself to another man. She touched her lips, still tingling from the tender yet fleeting contact. It had been just a small moment of affection, and yet it threatened to disrupt everything Elizabeth thought she wanted in life. Pushing off from the door, Elizabeth busied herself getting ready for bed, attempting to ignore the cauldron of emotions bubbling inside. But as she lay staring up at the ceiling, images of Samuel kept intruding on thoughts of her dutiful fiancé, George. Seeking comfort, Elizabeth reached up and clutched the necklace Aunt Gracie had gifted her. She could almost feel her aunt's soothing presence as she rubbed her thumb over the pendant. She could almost see Aunt Gracie again.
Oh, Aunt Gracie, I wish you were here to advise me.
Elizabeth whispered into the darkness. A single tear slipped down her cheek as she continued holding tight to the keepsake. Elizabeth replayed Gracie's words of wisdom in her mind.
Follow where your heart leads you.
Her heart yearned for Samuel, yet duty and obligation pulled her towards George. The opposing forces battled within her. Gripping the necklace like a talisman, Elizabeth prayed for strength and discernment. She trusted in time, the confusing fog of emotions would lift, revealing the way forward. For now, she drew comfort from Gracie's gift and the love it represented. Finally, exhausted, Elizabeth drifted off to sleep.
Thank you for listening to Underlying Love, a Worthington, Ohio mystery. Now that Elizabeth has talked to Hobo Jeff and Officer Jameson, will someone be able to help? Will she be able to wrestle her feelings between George and Samuel? And will Betty find her Jell-O recipe? Find out more in the next exciting episode, Chapter 6. Part 1, Disturbance in the Grove.